Hey everybody. You know, I watch a lot of bad movies, like a lot. And often people ask me why. And it's because I find bad movies fascinating. For a start, they can be harder to predict than normal blockbusters, which is fun for me. I like being surprised, and a bad movie sometimes is bad because it didn't follow the rules of filmmaking, which means you don't necessarily know where they're going. And so it can be a treat. But more importantly, nobody, and I'm sure there are exceptions to this, most people don't set out to deliberately make a bad film. And so it's also fun for me to try and figure out where exactly they dropped the ball and went from making something great to making a great mistake. And anytime I see the general public agree, oh, this is the worst movie of the year, I get really excited. Because I like bad movies. And I will go and watch it, and invariably I am disappointed because the worst movie of the year usually turns out to just be mediocre. Right? I just have to assume that most people haven't dug as deep into the garbage pile of cinema as I have, and they haven't seen the horrors that I've become accustomed to. Today's movie was occasionally lauded as the worst movie of the year. Was it? Let's find out together. This is Madam Web. We open in the Peruvian rainforest in the 70s as Madam Web's mom is on the hunt for a mysterious and powerful spider while 9 months pregnant. Thanks to her bodyguard, we get a quick explanation that the venom of these spiders gives superhuman abilities, and that there's a legendary group of men in the rainforest with these spider powers that fight against injustice. Although, aside from poachers, how much injustice is happening in this rainforest? Spider Mom finds the mystical spider, and so her bodyguard Ezekiel kills everybody, including Spider Mom, so that he can steal the spider and get the superpowers. As Zeke makes his escape, the spider people find our dying Spider Mom and drag her to their special spider cave. I will eventually use the word spider less, but not now. The magical spider people in the magical spider cave have the magical spiders bite Spider Mom, imbuing her unborn baby, who's born seconds later, with mystical powers, and then Spider Mom dies. We then cut to 2003 New York City. Cassie, who is our Madam Web, is an EMS worker whose partner is Ben Parker. Yes, Uncle Ben Parker. But this movie is really coy about that fact. They never mention his last name. Also, the movie will never tell us the name of his as yet unborn nephew. We quickly learn more about Cassie, our main character. First, she does not want to go to Ben's sister's baby shower, and second, she does not know how to interact with children at all. When a kid gives her a drawing to say thank you for saving my mom's life, Cassie's all, what the hell am I supposed to do with this drawing? Cool. So we've decided to make our main character unlikable. That's a choice. Ben tells Cassie that he's got a new girlfriend, which we're going to assume is Aunt May, but they never say her name and we never meet her. Aside from that weirdness, I have to say, I actually really like the banter between these two characters. It's really well written. Back in her lonely apartment, Cassie feeds milk to her cat and talks about how strays need to stick together. 2 quick points. By 2003, we all knew that we're not supposed to be feeding cats milk, right? Like it's bad for them, and we don't live our life according to cartoons. Also, if it's your cat that lives in your apartment that you always take care of and feed, is it still really a stray? The next day on the job, Cassie accidentally falls into the river in a wrecked car while saving somebody's life and has weird visions as she has a she has an actual death experience. The scene is honestly pretty good. It's filled with distorted audio from the rest of the movie that we haven't seen yet, and all sorts of strange visuals for events that haven't happened yet. Really, this movie all the time, all the stuff that they deal with regarding like time loops and her time powers is all done pretty well. She is saved by Ben and starts immediately having these weird little loops of time where she's repeating moments that just happened, but nobody else seems to understand that. We then cut to Zeke, who has used the last 30 years of superpowers to build a massive fortune and seduce women, which I guess if you can have glimpses of the future sometimes that's easy to do. Also, I would like to talk a quick moment about one of the weirder things in this film. See, it seems like about 75% of Zeke, the main enemy's dialogue, was changed after filming. A lot of times his dialogue sounds different and his mouth isn't seen by the camera, so he can say whatever. Often you'll see his mouth and it won't match what he's saying, and if it does match what he's saying, you can actually hear the difference from whatever sentence he just said where you couldn't see what... For some reason, after they filmed this movie, they got it in the can, paid the actors, they then decided to change 3/4 of the main villain's dialogue for the entire movie, and they didn't want to reshoot it. And I gotta be really honest, I am deeply curious about what it was originally and why they changed it. Anyway, Zeke is plagued by nightmares of himself as an older man being attacked by 3 women in spider costumes. They kill him. These nightmares apparently plague him every night, and so he has decided to dedicate his life to finding and killing these women before they can become a threat to him. This is a really stupid idea, and I would really like it if my villains were smarter than this. If you have the ability to see into the future, you should be smarter about fighting it. This whole thing is very Appointment in Samara. If you don't know Appointment in Samara, I'll tell you the story just real quick without any flair or whatever. A servant in the Middle East is in a small town. He's in the market. He sees Death. Death turns, looks at him, and raises a finger. Now the man is freaked out because he doesn't want to die. So he steals a camel and he rides it at a breakneck pace all day until he arrives in the distant city of Samara. Here he feels, I am safe. Whatever fate that Death had planned for me in that marketplace can't happen to me now. I am all the way over here, and that is when he sees Death again. And he's tired of running, and he says, "Why did you point at me in the market?" And Death said, "I was surprised to see you there because I knew we had an appointment in Samara." The general idea being that often the attempt to fight your fate is what causes you to have the fate you didn't want. And that's exactly the kind of thing that a villain should be aware of if he's supposed to be super smart and have some ability in seeing the future. We learn why Zeke seduced this specific woman. She works for the NSA, and they have technology that by now we see all over the place. I don't know if it existed in 2003, but it's a comic book movie, and a 5-second Google search didn't disprove it. So she has the ability to basically scan facial recognition through all public cameras. Right? This is a normal thing that we see in TV shows all the time now. So he's murdering her with his venom touch to take the technology from her. I am curious how he's going to use the computer program to scan for 3 women who are currently teenagers when he doesn't have any photos of them. He just has seen them in his dreams where they're full-grown women wearing full face masks, but he's going to use this computer program to find the teenage version of them without masks in the present day. And you know, when superheroes wear those masks, it's to conceal their identity, which is what they should do, right? Now Cassie is at Ben's sister's baby shower, and the bizarre time loop issues prevent Cassie from ever learning the name of the baby. Again, I don't know why this movie is so playful about not just saying Parker or Peter Parker. They specifically timed it so that it could match up with the current MCU Spider-Man's age. They have the legal right, Sony does, to have Spider-Man in their movies, let alone say the words Peter Parker. And yet they've just decided to be real playful about it. Like, they're afraid to commit to the bit. They're pulled away for a nearby dock fire at like a fireworks factory that's partially burned down now. Cassie tries to use her future vision to save the life of a coworker, but the future refuses to change, and he's killed in a car wreck. Immediately after that, we will get scenes that establish that neither her nor Zeke's visions are written in stone. They can be changed. She just sucked at changing it this time. Actually, if you think about it, the issue was the guy got in an ambulance, drove off, and was hit by a semi-truck. Now, she tried to talk him out of it, to say, let me drive instead, let me drive instead. And they argued for a while, and then ultimately he got in the car and drove off and got hit by the semi-truck. Her arguing with him delayed him enough to cause the accident. The movie never addresses this, but Cassie's taken a life. Zeke hands the new technology to his woman in a chair, who will help him track these women down. This woman is, throughout the entire movie, she is Zeke's only henchwoman. She is good at what she does. The movie never gives her a name. I'm just going to call her Chloe. Right? So Chloe is able to take the dream vision of these women. I guess Zeke describes them to her, and she's able to create the images of them as adults with the superhero masks on, and then Photoshop to remove the mask and de-age them 10 years and start scanning all of the cameras in the city for them. Are we sure Chloe's not just magic? Because that seems impossible. Also, just FYI, by this point in the movie, Cassie has actually met each of these three girls. She's bumped into all three of them very briefly, but the camera did that significant glance and then moved on with the story. Cassie decides to hop a train and get out of town, and at the same time, all three girls are getting onto the same train at Grand Central Station, and Chloe is telling Zeke that they're there, so he's on his way, and our movie is about to really begin at 40 minutes in. While sitting on the train, Cassie gets visions of Zeke attacking and killing the girls one by one, so she decides to, of course, get the girls off the train. Let's briefly address these three girls, right? The three girls are all based off of lesser-known Spider characters from Marvel Comics. They are so lesser-known that I've never heard of them. I don't know them. I haven't heard of Madam Web or Zeke either. I am not a deep comics fan, so I don't know how comic accurate any of them are. They do an okay job of giving these three girls three different personalities. One is a rich brat, the other is a tech nerd, and the third one is just desperate for anybody to accept or care about her at all. But the three of them are always together and tend to act as a unit even if they're bickering, so I'm not going to give them all three nicknames. They're just going to be the Spider Girls. One of them is played by Sydney Sweeney, who actually demonstrates a superpower. She's able to keep her shirt on for an entire movie, which I did not think she knew how to do. Cassie gets the Spider Girls off of the train, leaving Zeke behind, and that's when one of the Spider Girls calls out to the cops, "Help! This woman's trying to abduct us!" The cops look over but make absolutely no move, say nothing, do nothing. And that's when the girls notice Zeke is no longer on the train. Instead, he's magically teleported off of the train and into a spider costume, and he's climbing along the ceiling. But nobody but our four main characters can see him, so they jump on another train. And again, the police have no reaction to this. Possibly because you can very clearly tell that the three Spider Girls are moving on their own accord and there's no weapons anywhere. There's a lot more action sequences here. It's mainly Zeke attacking cops and chasing the Spider Girls. Zeke kills all the cops that we see. And he kind of does it stealthily, but it's also Grand Central Station, and we see a lot of people standing around. Surely somebody sees this. But killing the cops distracts him long enough that Cassie is able to steal a cab, get the girls in, and take off. Cassie quickly learns that none of the Spider Girls have parents of any significance. The rich one's parents are off traveling the globe and don't care. The Hispanic tech nerd, her mother died when she was young and her father was deported, and so she's just kind of squatting in an apartment hoping nobody notices till she turns 18. And then Sydney Sweeney is the one who just wants somebody to love her. Complicated story, but essentially she has ended up being a stepchild even though she's in her biological family. She's just neglected and nobody cares about her. So Cassie can't dump these girls off. She's stuck with them. And that's when a radio report comes on that Cassie's wanted for kidnapping the girls. Really? Because all of the cops who said we're being abducted didn't do anything and then were killed by a man in a black suit with lots of CCTV around and witnesses. But we're going to go after the kidnapper that we didn't care about instead of the cop killer? Sure. There's actually a funny little bit where Cassie explains to the girls that they can't leave because they're the only ones who know the truth about what happened and can clear her name, but that doesn't mean she's kidnapping them. She's just taking them somewhere to hide for a while, and one of the girls points out, it does feel like kidnapping. Cassie just drops the girls off in the woods somewhere on the edge of New York City, I guess, and decides to go back to her apartment to look up her mother's notes about spiders, because one of the Spider Girls pointed out that crawling on the ceiling is very spider-like. She swears she'll be back in 3 hours. The girls need to stay put while Cassie drives around town in a stolen cab. But Cassie's no dummy. As soon as she gets the stolen cab back to her house, she pries off the license plates. So now the cops can't pull her over for driving a stolen car. They can only pull her over for driving a car with no license plates. Cassie reads up on her mom's notes and learns more about the superpowers of these spider people. And now she knows more of what Zeke is capable of. She also finds a photo of her mom and Zeke, which leads to a fun sequence of her seeing if she can climb walls. She can't. The Spider Girls all get to know each other a little bit better and decide to walk half a mile to a diner they saw, ignoring everything Cassie said and the fact that they're in danger. Why not? While the girls eat and flirt with a table full of boys, we encounter easily the dumbest thing in this script. Okay. It has been maybe 3 hours since the incident at Grand Central Station where the kidnapping occurred and cops were killed. So explain to me how there is someone sitting at the counter of this diner reading an issue of the Daily Bugle where the front page is "Girls Feared Abducted." And it's not like a special issue, because you can read the front page. It is not a special emergency release. It's about that thick. It's a newspaper. It's a full-on paper. You're telling me in 3 hours the newspaper was able to not just put together a front page feature about the incident that just happened, but also get enough news story to fill an entire paper and get it distributed throughout the entire city, including this weird little diner all the way at the edge of town? Really? Because this is a crucial plot point. The story hinges on this. And the sad part is, it's so easy to fix. Anybody with half a brain could look at the script and go, that doesn't work. If you want that, all you do is, there's a TV in the diner showing the news. The girls aren't paying attention because they're eating and flirting with boys. But somebody can see the news report, which is a thing that could happen within 3 hours, and call the cops to say the kidnapped girls are here, which is what the guy reading the newspaper does. That's it. The newspaper makes no sense at all. Anyway, the dude reading the magical spider paper calls the cops. The call is intercepted by Chloe. Zeke then basically taps into the police network and pretends to be the police and says he's going to respond to the call. Nobody worry about it. We then watch Zeke kill all 3 girls again. But of course, once again, it is a vision of the future. So Cassie hops in her stolen cab and drives to the diner. Here's actually, I like to call out when these movies do something good. And you'll notice I'm saying it a few times in here. During the murder fest, Britney Spears' Toxic is playing. And it's near the end of the song and the girls are getting killed. When we cut back to Cassie in the woods recovering from this vision, the radio is playing in the cab and we hear the song start up, which then gives a serious impetus and sense of urgency to the scene, because now there is a ticking clock to get to that diner before he kills the girls. You have less than the length of the song that is playing right now. Also, I'm not big into music, but Toxic is a really good song, especially for like an action sequence where people are running and moving fast. It works really well. It's like, the whole thing, the newspaper's stupid, but the use of the song in this loop is actually pretty brilliant. Sorry, did I say Cassie drives to the diner? I'm sorry, I misspoke. She drives through the diner, hitting Zeke with her car. The girls pile in and off they go, but not before Zeke manages to give Cassie just a tiny dose of venom, which turns out to be a complete non-issue for Cassie. She's able to just shrug off the tiny amount of venom she got. It doesn't matter at all. The only reason it matters is because she somehow knows how the poison works, and it's a neurotoxin, and she knows it will stop her heart, so she teaches the three girls CPR, which I'm sure won't come up at a pivotal moment in the climax. Cassie decides she needs to get to the bottom of this whole spider person thing and how to deal with Zeke, so she needs to go to Peru. So she's going to leave the girls with Ben. Remember Ben? He hasn't been in the movie for about 40 minutes, but he's back now, baby! Despite Cassie being wanted for kidnapping these girls, he instantly believes her story and agrees to help hide the girls at his sister's house, because that's where he's staying, watching her because she's about to pop out a kid. Ben's just a good guy. Cassie arrives in Peru, and the spider people find her pretty quick, and she gets a detailed rundown of how her powers and abilities work, and she also learns what is a big plot hole for her. Why was her mother in the jungle 9 months pregnant looking for the spider? Turns out Cassie was diagnosed in the womb with a serious degenerative illness that would have killed her very young. The spider venom was the only thing that could have healed her before she was born, and it did. And now that Cassie has come to terms with her past, she's able to harness her powers for the future. Although it turns out she didn't get the super strength or spider powers or teleportation or whatever else Zeke does, but she can see the future. And we're even told she can be in more than one place at a time when she truly masters her powers. Meanwhile, we establish that the girls have been successfully hidden for an entire week. Just staying at Ben's sister's house. They have been impossible to find. They're not showing up on any cameras. They're just squatting in this house. Everybody's happy. Perfect. Except Ben's sister, and before people get pedantic, it's Ben's sister-in-law. Ben's brother is Peter Parker's dad. He's not in this movie. He's mentioned once or twice. He's off traveling the world. I was just trying to avoid saying sister-in-law a million times. Ben's sister-in-law just announced that her water broke, and Ben has to take her to the hospital. And for some reason, the Spider Girls, who have been completely safe and ignored in this house, decide that they have to go with them. Everybody agrees on this. Like, nobody says maybe they should stay here. Everybody's just like, no, of course you have to come with us. Make sure to put on a hoodie, but don't pull the hood down over your face, because then a camera won't spot you as soon as we leave. So they have a hood on, but the camera still spots them as soon as they leave. Minutes later, Cassie pulls up to the house, having just missed them, still driving the stolen cab with no license plates. Seriously, where did she hide this thing when she was in Peru for a week? At no point during any of that, nobody noticed a cab with no license plates when there is a search for a stolen cab on? Did she just park it in the airport parking garage? And then she just gets back in it, still with no plates. Does she not have her own vehicle? Maybe not. It's New York. But for the love of God, find some other form of transportation. This thing is just waiting to get you arrested. Zeke has Chloe turn all of the traffic lights in the city green, which obviously causes chaos and traffic jams so that he can catch up to and kill the girls. Luckily, Cassie, actually listening to me for a change, switches out her stolen cab for a stolen ambulance, and again arrives just in time to hit Zeke with her car, which leads to a pretty fun action sequence as she and the girls abandon Ben and Ben's sister-in-law to drive off in the ambulance, chased by Zeke, who, hops from vehicle to vehicle, and they have to fight him off. It's pretty well done, actually. It's a nice sequence. Cassie then has a vision of the entire future confrontation with Zeke in the dockside building that almost burned down at the beginning of the film. Now, we don't see the entire sequence that she does. We see snippets of it. But it's enough to inform us that basically she now knows what's going to happen before it happens. It lets her come up with a whole plan and put all the pieces into place for them to survive a giant battle in a burning building full of explosives, because they're setting this firework factory on fire. I am not giving you a play-by-play of the final action sequence for this movie. It does go on for a while, but honestly, it's pretty good. It's fun to see her ability to see the future is able to let her block shots before they hit anybody. It's very well done. Then you get, of course, to the final moment where she does have to be in 3 places at once to save the girls, utilizing her powers to the extreme. She gets knocked into the water and a firework explodes in her face, the only shot she doesn't manage to block in time. They fish her out of the water, perform the CPR. Zeke is killed. Everybody's fine, except Cassie is blind. But we see a scene at the end, and it turns out when you can have perfect control of your visions of the future, being blind, not really a problem. All you have to do is see a second into the future, and you know exactly where to go and what to do. That's the movie. It's not bad. At its very worst, it's mediocre, but really, it has good parts to it. It gets the hard stuff right. The action sequences are good. The time manipulation stuff is good. The characters and their dialogue is good. The acting is good. The script just makes some stupid decisions in places, and I feel like I can almost hear somebody pointing it out to one of the writers, and the writer just going, nobody will pay attention to that. It's a comic book movie. I honestly think if they had just run through this thing with another script doctor to ask some questions and tidy some stuff up, it would be a better movie and it would have a better reputation. Also, if they just leaned into the Spider-Man connection instead of his name's Ben, we don't know what his last name is, it could be anything. Just own it. Own what you're doing, man. I don't get that. So yeah, one of the worst movies of the year, and honestly, it's fine. It's fine. It's not even painful to watch. It's perfectly fine. Anyway, the next several reviews are going to be something a little different. See, no, I'll save that intro for the next one. I'll just say, I have found a series of films that you've probably never heard of, and I would like to share them with you. I would like us to experience them together. So I'll see you next time.